So we're here. All right. So this is great. So this interview is going to be for my Hispanic Roots and Cultures class at Mission College, part two. So what I'm going to do is just ask you some questions about yourself and like more like you tell us about you, and your background. So could you tell us like because I know you know Spanish, and I know you come from a Spanish speaking background. So could you tell us about yourself and where did you grow up and about yourself and yeah, just background for anyone that doesn't know.
Okay. So, as you know, my name's Maira. I grew up in the Bay in a small town called East Palo Alto. There, well, I lived there for majority of my life until I moved over here about like a year ago now, to Sacramento. Yeah, I grew up speaking Spanish. I like graduated, I don't know if it's the right word, like the Spanish speaking test in like the sixth grade. So I had those tests for a while, like the ESL classes and stuff.
Yeah.
Um, so, I didn't really like reading and writing and stuff because it was just so much harder for me, especially since also like I like spoke majority of Spanish in the household. Um, I only spoke English in my household, like here and there, only with my siblings though. Never with my parents. And they're always like, you have to speak Spanish because I don't understand what you're saying. So I'm like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. So it was interesting, like having to go from one language in like school and then another at home. I don't think it was bad. I feel like it really did help me because now I can talk to anyone in any language, either English or Spanish, not any language, but yeah, so I feel like it's really helpful because I know some of my cousins did not like want to speak Spanish growing up with their parents and they had to like go to school and learn Spanish all over again for their careers and all that, which isn't bad, I don't think. Like it's like everyone's journey, with any language. But I mean, I made it. Went through school. School was all right. I do love it more now. Now that I'm at a community college over here in Sacramento. And it's been going really well, studying to be a sonographer. Um, yeah, that's a little bit about me.
That's good. I really like how you shared like something that a lot of people don't think about, where when you speak it at home and then you go to school, they teach you in school is going to be completely different to what you know. Because it's like it also gives you perspective, like speaking the language, but also being able to sit in a classroom and have the instructor teachers as a completely different flipped experience.
Mhm.
It's like one time in high school, I took Spanish. I thought I was going to learn fluent, but it never happened. But I did get a certificate in Spanish a couple months ago. But what I found was back in high school, because when you were speaking, you said that I was struggling in Spanish too. Everybody in my class in Spanish too, we all forgot our fundamentals in Spanish. So it was like so Senora Landa was like, you guys all need to know your Spanish one if you're gonna be in this class. And we were all struggling. And so one day I got a friend of mine that was like he spoke Spanish at home. So I was like, can you help me? He's like, yeah, sure. So he helped me with my homework and then I showed it to Senora Landa. Senora Landa said your friend is wrong here, here, here.
Ah.
I didn't get it. I didn't understand like what is Senor Orlando talking about. But then
Mhm.
now with what you just shared, I'm like that explains it. That explains it. And
Yeah, yeah.
it's like it also gives me perspective about like how because like learning a second language, I'll tell you something, because I'm a digital marketer. I work with so many people every day. Learning a second language is one of the best things you could ever know because it's so helpful for your job and your career. My Spanish is so. It's not even that. I wouldn't even say. I usually say mi español más o menos, but really
Mhm.
it's mi español muy mal, very bad.
No.
Because I feel like if I know more, the more you know, the better it is because you can connect better with people, and it's really a helpful tool to have because I work with coworkers where their Spanish is so much better than mine. And I'm like thinking, I could see even in college when I worked in retail, Spanish was something that I saw like, because in the work you do, you know what language you're going to need to know the most. In Spanish, I feel like if I knew more, even it's not too late for me to go back and pick up where I was before. But I feel like if you know a second language, that's like one of the best tools you could ever have. Because like you said, your coworkers, your cousins, they went back to school and they learned it later on in their career. But it's like because they know what I know now, which is man, learning a second language like Spanish is going to help me essentially in my work. So it's like, yeah, so just letting you know, like you got a really special tool. So when you're working with your patients, in your career, you got that special tool that's going to be able to help them out. Better than being like asking your friend, like, hey, can you help me translate or help me out here? Because
No,
like,
yeah.
yeah,
Also, that point that you made with your friend, like helping you in Spanish.
yeah,
So I took Spanish in high school too. It was like a native speaker branch. Like there was like regular, like beginner Spanish and then like a native speaker Spanish class. And it was so interesting because like I didn't grow up speaking proper Spanish. I grew up speaking just like slang Spanish, like so it's like very different. So when I was in this class, I was like, what are they talking about? But yeah, like talking with my parents, sometimes they'll be like, "Oh no, don't say it like that. You have to say this because that's like what we grew up with at our because they grew up in like more rural area and like ranches, small ranches and stuff like that. So they didn't really have like that Spanish education like in the cities. So they're like, "Oh no, like don't say that. That's not proper." And like say it like this when I was like, "Oh yeah, like in school this and that." So it was like I had Spanish, but I also had to make sure to improve on that Spanish. So it's like actually sound proper and people know what I'm talking about.
yeah. That's interesting. Like that's I hear what you're saying. It's almost kind of like it's almost kind of like if you were to go into like if you go because like Chicano in Hollywood, I go to Chicano Hollywood workshops and conferences. But if you go there and you cross paths with a lot of creative minds, like it's like and you were to speak Spanish with them in Chicano and Hollywood, they would have it's like I get what you mean. You want to make sure it's polished up and it's neat because if it's like if there's slang in the speech and you speak Spanish, some of them obviously like our generation, our age will be able to respond no problem. But then older generation, like in Chicago and Hollywood, the people that are like really experienced in their Spanish and experienced in the work that are like our parents' generation, they would probably be like, "What are you saying? Like, can you polish that up a little bit?" They'll know you have to polish that up. So it's kind of like being formal. It's like right now, I would not wear this to Chicano in Hollywood. I would not do that. I would not do that in my life. So it's like you want to be. It's almost kind of like keeping your Spanish like clean and neat and organized. You don't want to show up like talking like it's all about me. It's almost like just like clothing or just like people. You want to make sure it's polished and clean. So that's interesting. You said that. That's really good because I feel like a lot of people would be like because I used to think if I knew Spanish fluently then I'll be fine. But there's more to it. It's being able to make sure okay, if I'm gonna speak slang, I gotta make sure I'm with my friends. But if I'm going in this setting, I gotta keep it professional and I gotta make sure everyone understands what I'm saying because even like probably like soccer players I see like if they don't speak the language they have a translator so the translator is able to make sure that they are it's clear to the press but if they were to talk slang it's like they'll be like what.
Yeah, it's almost like, when you text your friends, you like speak in a certain way, but when you're like writing an essay, you're like, oh, I gotta be professional.
Or an email you don't
Like,
want to say you or like you when you say you it's you spell the word but you don't say you as in the letter U because it's unprofessional if you do you.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so like the next question I have is like with 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 growing up in the States and also knowing Spanish and coming from a Spanish speaking home, what do you think are the differences from like going to school? Like, what is there something that you learned growing up here in the States that you feel like has been essential for you that you feel like somebody that grew up in another country that spoke only Spanish would? Do you feel like what's the difference you feel from what you learned going to school speaking English and knowing Spanish as well versus somebody that grew up just in the country speaking only Spanish? What do you think is the difference you feel from your experience and what you know?
Like, what do you mean?
Like an example would be I had for part one of the interview, I interviewed one of my friends. He grew up in Mexico and he came to the States in 2008 and he went back to school for a little bit. He didn't mention this in the interview. He did. He said when he came here to the States and he started speaking, he tried to communicate and it was like a culture shock in a sense because his experience of growing up in education and the standards there in the States in Mexico was different to here in the States. So like even though you grew up here in the States and you went to school, what do you think has been essential for you, like in terms of culture, in terms of understanding, like hold on, my question is kind of complicated because I feel like because you went to school, you know Spanish, and you as well as you grew up here in the States. What do you think is essential with the differences in like somebody that grew up here in the States knows Spanish versus somebody who came didn't have the background of growing up in the States and it's a bit different. What do you think is the difference from your perspective, from your side of the coin? Because you have the experience of both worlds from the start versus somebody like my friend who came from Mexico at a later age and he had a different experience, culture shock, culture, trying to speak Spanish with different Spanish speakers, but he found that it was different for some people because they came from different parts, different countries. So, what do you think is from your experience that differences you feel?
Well, it's definitely like it's interesting because I have, like you said, two sides of that one coin. But I have had like family members who came from Mexico like at a later ages. Like I had some of my little cousins, I think they were 9 and 10, I believe, or 8 and 9, one of the above. But it was like really interesting, like talking to them and everything, because the way they would speak was very different to the way how I would speak. And it was so funny because they're like, oh my gosh, like you have an accent. And I was like, what? So I never realized I had an accent, but I do have like a sort of English accent in my Spanish because, like the mix of the languages. Um, I know they say my sister sometimes has an accent in her English, like
Yeah.
too. So it's like very interesting to see that. But I feel like the mesh of the two cultures, it's something unique to everyone because when you're learning a language, like my cousins or even some friends that I've met at school, like they're from the Middle East and they had to learn English in order to get into like the same career path and everything. So they were like, it's a lot harder because one, we're learning the material, and two, we're also learning the language at the same time. So it's like a lot harder for us. And I'm like, wow, like I never thought about it that way, like I've always had that English part since I was growing up. I have two older sisters who went to school, before I did. So sometimes they would talk English amongst themselves. And I would pick it up here and there when I was
Very
young.
good. Very good. I like how you shared like how they would when you'd see them and they would tell you their experience was a little different and then how you'd even pick up the differences. And you're also like aware of like how you would say words in your accent. That's really good. I'll tell you something like having the accents and also having that experience, that's really good. It makes you stand out from the crowd because I work with people every day and I tell you something, I wish I had that in my voice as well because I tell you, like I said, learning a second language is so phenomenal. Having that also that cultural knowledge, because I got my degree in communication, but I also studied cultural communication, both at Mission College and at San Jose State. And I gotta say, like, having that under your belt in communication makes you so much more as a better problem solver. So what you guys got is like so much better as a problem solver. So it's like very essential. It's like a superpower.
Mhm.
And my next question is like, did you so like with music and English, because I know growing up here in the States you have artists that you love in English, but do you have also Latin pop artists that you also are like, I love that, not just because they're Latin pop artists that make English music, but is there any Latin pop artist that makes English music and Spanish music, but when you hear that you're like, yes, I really like that like I love that artist a lot.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah, so my dad was a musician. He is a musician. So music was something I grew up with all of my life, like forever. Um, so I remember like when I was hearing a lot of like um, people who incorporated English and Spanish in their music, I was like, wow, it's pretty cool. Like, I know Kali Uchis is like really known for that a lot. And I really do love her music. And I'm like, wow, like she really did that, Like, she has some music in English, but she also incorporates like the Spanish. So it's like that Spanglish in there. Also, Cuco, I know he has some Spanglish songs too.
Yes.
I love a lot of my dad's like favorite artists, and they're all like a lot of Mexican singers and stuff, but also like pop artists. Like her name is Paulina Rubio, is really
Yes.
good. Yeah.
Yes.
Um, I forget her last name, Natalia Lefurdis or something like that.
Yes.
She's
Yes.
awesome. Carla Morrison, Mon Laferte, all those like. They're just so great. And like even the old time, like Los Tigres del Norte is a big one that my dad always listened to. The Cumbia Kings
Yes,
also.
yes.
Yeah.
Maybe quinceanilla, yes, yes, yes.
So yeah, just hearing music from all like Spanish, hearing music in English, hearing music in Spanglish, and even all the other languages that are out there. But those will resonate more with me because I can understand them more through the lyrics, and it's just really awesome.
There was a Latin artist that I saw in LA actually that came. She came downtown. I got a good picture. It was hold on, I'm trying to get a picture. Okay. Yeah, it was Ninel Conde.
Oh.
Yeah, so she came. That was my Instagram. Yeah, so she came and she was phenomenal. She was a really good storyteller and she knew how to use the space around her very well. And she was really good at giving the spotlight to other musicians. So that was a really great experience. The funny thing is my friend Edgar, who I interviewed for part one of this project, said to me when we were at the concert downtown, because she came and he was saying to me like she was acknowledging the musicians and we are all clapping because I could see how, even though I don't, my Spanish is not so good, I can still understand by listening and being aware. So I can see she was acknowledging the musicians and we're all clapping. Edgar was like, be quiet, Joshua, you don't understand what she's saying. And I said, yes, I said, I laughed and I said, dude, she's acknowledging the musicians. I see that
Yeah.
because the spotlight goes on the guitar player. He was nodding his head. And I'm like, okay, I see what's happening. And then the drum player, the backup vocals, so the dancers, and that's really good. So, and my next question is, it's you know, like this interview is not just for the project, but I'm hoping to help use this on my channel to inspire other people. So, like, and I know that from your experience of like from having both the experiences of growing up here and then having your Spanish speaking background and having your family as well, like relating to others. It's like, what advice would you give somebody that is going from one country to another? They don't speak English. They only know Spanish, and it's a culture shock. What advice would you give them to being like, hey, here's how to get out of that culture shock. Here's how to be, it's going to be all right. Do these things. Like, what tools would you give them to make sure that it's going to be all right for them? Because I feel like a lot of people, like going from one, not just one country to another, but one city to another, I feel like a lot of people can relate to that in their own way.
Mhm. Well, I feel like I'm not really qualified to give that kind of advice, only because I grew up here, and so like although I am Mexican, like I don't have that experience of like coming from another country. I was born here, raised here. So it's like I only know Mexican American culture. I don't really know per se only like Mexican or even Latin American culture or only American culture. So it's like I have those two. But I mean, moving from where I grew up to here, for that, I guess I could say like just try to be like involved in your community. There's always people who are from your background. There's like if you're from Peru, if you're from Colombia, if you're from Mexico, from anywhere. Like there's always those people that are around in the community. And the more involved you get, not only do you get to meet more people of your background, but you also get to see like all the help that's around, like all the information that's around the community, like events and like all those great stuff that you can be a part of here. I know it's like really hard, and I know like from my parents' experience, people can be really scared because they're like, I don't know anything about here. The culture is like what? And like I don't even know how to ask people or who to ask because sometimes you can meet some really great strangers and sometimes you can meet some really rude strangers. So, I understand there's that like scary aspect to it. But I mean, just putting yourself out there, I feel like it's the best in my opinion. But again, I'm not the best qualified.
No,
So,
actually, what you shared is actually really good. Like, even myself, like, I grew up here in the States too, so I don't actually have that. I don't think it has anything to do with qualification. It's all about, well, what experience do we have that brings us to the table? And like I said, this question, I feel like a lot of people can relate to it because I moved from the Bay Area to LA. I've never been to LA in my life until I moved here. So it was like, So I agree. Everything you said is actually essential for everyone in different situations because get throwing yourself out there and getting involved,
Mhm.
then you connect more with people. You're forced to really interact. And versus like I'm just gonna be in my shell, but it's like no, I got responsibilities. I gotta go. So I feel like what you shared is really good. And I have two more. I have one more question, and then I'm gonna just say, and then at the end I have actually two more. But the next one is like everybody has like an idol or someone they look up to that makes them proud to know where they like. I know I'm proud to be where I'm coming from. I'm proud to be who I am because this person, when I look at them, it makes me feel proud. Did you have anyone that inspired you growing up that's like, yes, I'm proud to be where I come from my background and being also growing up here in the States. When I see this singer, when I see this actor, when I see this person, I feel really proud. Is there anyone that you look up to that you found an inspiration for you growing up or in life?
Um, well, as cheesy as it is, it's not an artist, it's my family.
Yes.
Yeah, so my parents, they came here. My mom came here, she was like 19. And then my sister too, she was really young. I think she was a couple months old when she came over here too. And then my dad, I think at the time he was like 29 too. So they were relatively young, and they just had to figure it all out. My mom never been to the States before, so she was like, I don't know where I'm at, I don't know what I'm doing. But her and my dad has been to the States a little bit before, but not for like an extended period of time. So navigating everything, and just like everything they did, I'm like, how did you come here not knowing anything around you? You know, they had family that they came with, but even then, that family was still new to the States too and the area. So I'm like, I can't believe you guys figured that out at such a young age. You guys then had three kids you had to like support, and like just seeing how they are today, like they know English well. They can read, they can write, they can like communicate. Um, and like they're just making everything go so well for them. And I'm like, wow, like I feel so privileged now to where I am now compared to like the before. Like they
Yes.
really worked up there. And then my sister, I would say she's like my number one role model because she was not born here. And she persevered a lot of like a lot more crazy things than me or my second oldest sister. And like she had a lot of like racist comments in high school when there was like majority white people there. And
Um,
yup, and she had to like endure not having opportunities because she wasn't a citizen. So she had to navigate the world. And then just seeing her now. She is an engineer. She's been working at a job for like a couple years now. She bought her first home at like she just had turned 23. So I was
Yay.
like, yeah, so she persevered and she's still persevering. And she found a partner who was like the same and like really going through life. And I seeing how they help each other is just amazing and how far they've come. And now they're trying to help me, like they let me live here with them, and they're like, you have to go to school, like I don't like you don't have to worry about anything, we want you to succeed, that's all we want.
That's
And I'm
awesome.
just like, oh, it's honestly such an amazing thing. And I just don't want to let them down because they're just so great, and they're like wonderful people and very supportive. And I mean, look at them now. So
That's awesome. Like I gotta say, you won't let them down. You work really hard, and you're one of the most hardworking, enthusiastic people I ever met. And like you're doing a great job. And like I really like that response because I feel like I said, it's like this interview is not just for my project, but I feel like everyone could relate to it. And even like in the reflection of this interview, it was like the reflection of the interview I'm gonna do at the end after we go off. I'm gonna do it separately, and I'll put it all in the editing of the video. But I just want to say like I appreciate you taking your time to talk to me. And like I said, I enjoyed your responses and I enjoyed this chat because like I said, everything that we go through, God gives us the tools to get through it. And I just want to say your sister and you and everybody, she went through what she went through, and it's like God gave her the tools to God gave her the tools to get through her struggle. And in the end, she didn't let it break her down. Just like even with ourselves, we went from one city to another with new challenges. And it's like we didn't let those break us down. God gives us the tools to get through it in our character and the resources. God has given you the tools to get through your challenge with school, with having your sister there to support you. And it's like and they want you to succeed. And you got friends like me that are rooting you on. And it's like, we're all here to help each other out. And it's like, that's a tool. That's like, I feel like anyone listening to this and it's like going through challenges, it's like, just know, just keep putting in the work, and God is giving you the tools to get through it. Just keep going forward and know that there are people around you to support. That's why it's like community, like what you said, when you go from one city to another, one country, the best thing is get involved. So it's like,
Yeah.
because then you're inspiring others, and then you're learning, and you're throwing yourself out there. You're like, I'm just gonna stand here and be in my bubble. You have responsibilities. Go out there. All right.
Yeah. Literally.
So thanks so much, Myra, for doing this. I enjoyed this. And when I do my response at the end, like off camera, when I'm like, I'll be like, here's my reflection. I'll put it in the editing of the video and I'll send it to you. So yeah.
Okay, awesome. Yeah.
All right. Good night and peace out. I was gonna say good night, but good day. Peace out.
All
Bye-bye.
right, I'm gonna stop the recording.
Hi everybody, I'm coming back from downtown LA and I thought I'd film my reflection on the interview I did with my friend Maira today. You know, it was a really great conversation, a lot of fun. She seemed to have enjoyed it, I enjoyed it, she said she had a good time, I also had a good time, and just a great chat. And one of the questions in this reflection is, what's one of the topics my guest felt really talkative about? I think she was really talkative about talking about, I think, you know, talking about her sister's experience, and I felt like, because that was really from the heart. She was talkative about all the topics, but I feel like she was really, what I felt when she talked about her sister and what she had to overcome, that was really from the heart, and she really enjoyed talking about that. I feel like that was it. And the second question was, in this reflection, is what are my overall thoughts of this conversation? You know, it was phenomenal, it was a lot of fun, and I feel like her answers were relating to so many people, whether you're going from one city to another, one country to another. Like the advice that she gave on what she thinks that you can do, I feel like a lot of people can relate to that. And one of the other questions was, did I know this person I was interviewing, and did I learn anything new? Yes, I did. We went to San Jose State together, and I learned that, like, so much about how, even though she has a Spanish-speaking background, that there's still things that she's improving on in her Spanish, as well as, like, you know, in Spanish has been, because learning a language is not just about learning a language, it's about being a critical thinker, being aware, and understanding on a deeper level the language than just learning it. And it's like, you know, it's like she's always improving in her Spanish, being a critical thinker, being a problem solver, and seeing how it connects. And also, like, she said that from her experience, her cousins grew up with her, but they came back years later to learn Spanish for their career. But it's like they came and learned it at their own time. So what I took from what she was sharing was that, and this is very important, you're always improving. You're always improving. There's never going to be a time where you're not improving in something or improving in a skill. So I found that's very true. That's very true. So I found that really helpful, and that was really inspiring, and that's really a key tool for success. You never stop improving. You're always improving, and just like she's always improving. And that was really good with her response about how, even though she knows Spanish for so long, she's improving and she's always improving. So that's really phenomenal. Really great answer. So those are all the questions for this reflection, and I hope this inspires somebody else.